All right, man. You've played the
Going
show.
on.
You watched the show, right? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
I've seen the show.
You've seen it. That's what we're talking about today. Who in the heck wants to be a millionaire? And well, in 10 years. So not immediately. Anyway, guys, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about real estate markets that are most or that are set up best for making a lot of money in appreciation. And we're going to talk, a couple of things about what they have in common. We're also going to dive into some mortgage rates. And Steve, I swear to God, do not let me start talking about politics in the election tomorrow. Just don't let it
Wonderful.
happen because I am so tired of text messages and phone calls and all this other bullshit. I'm tired of it. Cool?
I'm honestly tired of it being close. I wish we could have an old style election where it was like, wow, 30 to 60. Wow, nobody saw that one
Blown
coming.
out.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
always it's always 48, 49 right now, and that bothers me. But you're right. Let's
crazy.
stop talking about it. We're done. Done.
Guys, the whole point of this show is real estate and mortgages. And, I'm Chris Peshek, and I'm based here in Austin, Texas, actually Dripping Springs, Texas. This is Stephen Babcock. He's a mortgage guy. He's based in Lago Vista, Texas, which is just up on the northwest side of Austin. But we jump into a bunch of different articles. We talk through this stuff. We bring our expertise. Steve and I have both been in the business multiple years. I've been in 14 years now. How long have you been in?
Well, I had
About the
hair when I
same,
got in
right?
the business,
Huh?
and my beard wasn't gray, and I had hair when I got in the business, so that should give you an idea.
Well, I
Um,
didn't have hair because I shaved it. So,
yeah, I think. I mean, it depends on if we're talking about mortgage or real estate.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that's right. You were both
yeah, they're kind of the same
the
beast to
same
a certain
animal.
degree. It's in
Yeah.
real estate investments, so I know a lot about that. But no, I think I was licensed in 2012, I believe.
There, so we're right about the same time. Yeah. There you go. All right, man. One of the other things that we do on this show is it is called After Hours Real Estate for a reason. And we typically drink some adult beverages. My friend, what do you have today?
I have a Heineken today, my friend.
Oh, look at you. Do you have two?
Always, yes,
Nice.
always for the
You know
show.
why? You know why? Because your boy turns 50 in 56 days and he's back on water trying to be healthy.
You should be
So
building up your liver for that party. That's what you should be doing.
the
Endurance
party,
tests.
the big party's going to come in the spring. The big party's going to come in the spring,
It's probably
and I'll build my tolerance up till there.
it's probably
Um,
for the best. It's probably for
yeah,
the best. Well, either way, cheers, sir.
cheers. Um, and guys, on this show, like I said, we're gonna go through a little article from Yahoo Finance today, and then we're gonna jump into Mortgage News Daily. But it's a hell of a lot more fun when we get interaction from the audience. So if you've got questions, if you think we're right, if you think we're wrong, let us know in the comments. We get this stuff live as we go, and if you're watching it after the fact, even if it's not live anymore, ask us anyway because we're going to answer the questions if they pop up. We love answering questions. So,
Well,
man,
since you're starting off, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Since you're starting off with this whole millionaire row thing,
Yeah.
I figured I would just throw out there the little known fun fact that while most people say they want to be a millionaire, it's not the truth. Most people don't want to be a millionaire. Most people want to spend $1 million.
Correct.
Sorry, keep going. Go ahead.
No, that's a great freaking delineation. They just want to have money to spend. There's a difference between being rich and wealthy. You know this, right?
Yep.
Being rich, you make a lot of money. Being wealthy is actually having wealth and generating additional wealth in years to come and being able to pass that wealth down to your offsprings. So that is, or, your friends or whoever. And that's what this article's about. So millionaire in 10 years, these real estate markets might take you there. And this is from yesterday. Several major housing markets in the West and Midwest. Notice it didn't say the East. I always found that interesting from the beginning. Are on track to join the $1 Million Club within the next decade, according to new projections from Realtor.com. Boise City, Idaho leads the pack of emerging high-value markets with median home prices expected to climb from $464 today to nearly $1.2 million by 2033. In 9 years, that's a 3x change. That's pretty nuts. One of
Okay.
the
We'll see if
forecast
it
is based on
happens,
the
right?
city. Oh shoot, go ahead.
I love these articles that are like, this is exactly what will happen, right? And man, if they were right, then everyone would just buy a house there, right? If everyone,
They would.
you hear these economists, the whole joke about the economy is that you could ask 11 or 12 different economists what they thought things would be like in a year, and each one of them is going to have a different answer for you, right? And
That's
yeah,
fair.
there you go, multimillionaire, smart.
Multi-millionaire.
Anyway, so take this stuff with a grain of salt, right? I'd
Well,
love to go to
here-
Yahoo Finance like 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, and see what they were saying
see what
about
they wrote, see what they wrote about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to finish this little part. The forecast is based on the city's 58.2% price growth rate observed between 2014 and 2019. And that's really interesting to me. But what I want to say about that is, and you just mentioned something, maybe if everybody went to Boise City, Idaho and bought land, it would be worth 1.2 million.
Well, hey, we drive up the price.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe the whole point of this is to drive people to buy in these markets. Just
The
saying.
Russians did that in Florida. I learned about it in a continuing ed class where they,
Stop.
yeah, they basically put in like straw buyers, right? So they'd put in a young couple to go buy one of their homes that they would sell for 50,000 more than it was worth. The couple would say, "Hey, no problem. I want the house. I'll pay for it." And that just would repeat itself over and over and over again. The young couple was actually a Russian couple working with them somehow, or not a Russian, but it was, they got caught doing it, which is why I'm happy to talk about it out loud. This is public information. But sorry, yeah, Ram, you got on a
Markets
tangent
are
there.
manipulable. Markets are
Say again?
manipulable. Markets
Yeah.
are manipulable. Yeah.
Well, you're not supposed to do it, and yeah, they'll
But
catch you.
it can be done. The thing that kind of grabbed my attention here was that they're looking at 2014 to 2019. You and I have talked at length on this show about how 2021 and 22 are just abnormal markets, and everything increased 58% at that time. But this is 58% prior to COVID. I thought that was a pretty interesting time period that they were studying. A lot of people are too sloppy to do that. I'm just going to say.
Let's see. Hold on now. They're saying that by what year we're going to have? Okay, so
2033, 9 years.
Okay, so in
Hell,
9
almost
years,
8
there
years.
should be a 52% price growth. Well, let's just think about what the Fed's interest rate, not interest rate, but their goal of inflation, the inflation rate is. So that'd be 2% a year.
2% a year.
So
Yeah.
how many years until 2033?
About 8.5.
Eight and a half.
Eight and a little bit.
So about 17, if you're going to add that half in there, that should be 17% anyways for everybody else's home, right? So that leaves my kid's playing in the corner, and it's really hard for me to concentrate, but that leaves roughly 40% of a difference there, right? But with current inflation, I think you could actually get closer to that. So I wonder what they think the rest of the world would do while Boise's doing 58%.
Well, but here's the thing, you're reading that wrong. So they're saying based on 58% growth between 14 and 19. They're not saying it's 58% growth. There's going to be a 3x growth.
I didn't read that right. I didn't even read
464
it.
to 1.2. 300%, man.
Then what is that increase from 464 to 1.2 million?
I mean, if it was 400, yeah, it's 300%, right?
Well, that's roughly 3 times. That's roughly 3x.
Yeah. Right? Call it 2.5x. That's a hell of an increase.
Not quite 3x. Yeah.
Okay, so the analysis, which examined price trajectories in America's 100 largest metros, points to a broader trend of rising valuations in markets near existing high-cost areas. That's another key here. California's Central Valley, Stockton's a perfect example. Prices projected to reach 1.4 by 2033, up from a median of about 600 now. So that's more than double. Okay. As prices increase and price folks out of the immediate San Francisco Bay Area, people will venture further out into the valley. Stockton is a great location position between the metros of San Francisco and Sacramento. Interesting thing, and this is probably around 2017 or 2018, met a guy at an A&M event, and he had recently moved here from San Francisco back then. He took, I'm trying to remember the numbers, but he basically took a $60,000 or $70,000 a year pay decrease to move back to Austin from San Francisco, but ended up netting more money, mostly based on cost of living. That's freaking insane. And he was living in a 1-bedroom apartment there and spending $6,000 a month. Now, he did say he was living downtown San Francisco in a high rise, but a 1-bedroom apartment for $6,000? That's nuts, man. Hey, our buddy Rusty's back. What's up, Rusty? Increase in Boise population will be due to mass migration about to flee conservative cities and states. All right. That's an interesting, I hadn't heard that yet. I can see the cities because we know that cities are changing. We'll say
Well, I
that.
guess we just learned who Rusty thinks is going to win the election. That's for sure.
So other markets poised for appreciation include Salt Lake City, Portland.
How are you,
Colorado
Rusty?
Springs.
Hello. Sorry to interrupt you.
What's up?
Go ahead. I was saying, hi, Rusty. How's it going, by the way? Friendly.
Yeah.
Hello.
That's it. So for my investments, come on, Colorado Springs, let's go. All projected to cross the $1 million threshold within 10 years. Denver and Sacramento are also expected to see substantial gains, with median prices potentially going 1.3 and 1.1 respectively. I can't imagine Sacramento going 1.1. That's crazy. The Sun Belt, despite its rapid growth, shows notable different dynamics. Even though the Sun Belt's growing fast, there's still a lot of land and cheaper housing. That makes sense. Owner of the Missouri Valley Homes. Availability of land makes it easier to build new homes, which keeps prices from jumping too high. Yeah, it's the same thing when you get out, call it, Houston or east of Austin or north of Austin. Dirt's a hell of a lot cheaper. So the price, and you can build a lot more houses. It's supply and demand. If you've got a high supply or the ability to bring them to market fairly cheaply, the prices are going to stay suppressed. Realtor economist Hannah Jones cautions that the projections assume current trends will continue. Obviously, that's what trends are. That's what we assume. If the local economy shifts, demand could fall. Prices may not keep up with the recent growth. On the supply side, home construction could pick up, taking some pressure off of the inventory, which would allow for slower price growth. Okay. Oh, got to keep it going. Here's what I was noting. The analysis used pre-pandemic data from 14 to 19 to avoid market distortions caused by recent economic upheavals and applied those growth rates to current prices to generate 10-year forecasts. By this measure, Seattle tops the list in absolute terms, with prices potentially reaching almost 1.5, up from 700 today. So again, over double. And here's the entire list. I just want to get your thoughts on if any of these kind of shock you. Boise City, Idaho kind of shocks me because there's nothing in Idaho other than Coeur d'Alene, and everybody wants to move up there. That price is already high.
Yeah, no, this doesn't shock me at all. In fact, I think it'd probably be much worse.
Okay. Salt Lake City doesn't shock me. They've become a huge mecca for people getting out of other areas, especially California. Quite a few Texans have moved to Utah as well. Portland, Oregon shocks me. And the reason it does, that's a doubling of the value. The reason Portland shocks me is because of all the issues they've got going on there with, anything you look at with homelessness and drugs and all the other stuff. I can't imagine people are still going to be moving to Portland. That one's
jobs, man. It's all about the jobs.
Yeah, I guess. But are there any major businesses moving there? I mean, you'd have to continue to add businesses, and I can't imagine they're going to go, again, if safety is down and you've got a climate that's shitty half the time, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Portland to comment.
Yeah, and I
that was my issue with these articles was that this article was that it wasn't Austin. So I'm. Oh,
you gave it away.
Sorry.
Damn it. Damn it.
Sorry.
Oh, shit. Colorado Springs, Colorado. I know that market, if it keeps growing, is going to explode. One of the fastest growing markets in Colorado, you may be interested in this, is Pueblo. Pueblo is fast becoming the place for millennials and Gen Zers because the cost of living is so low, and there's like tons of available homes. And it's really like they've got really good internet and all this other stuff. So their, cost of home ownership there is really low. So Pueblo is growing really fast, about 45 minutes south of Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs has, I think it's approved at this point, on the east side of the city, basically from the airport in the southeast all the way up to even with the Air Force Academy that's in the northwest, but again, all along the east side. There's a massive, massive ranch that they're going to develop. It's supposed to be in the neighborhood of 60,000 doors. Can you imagine how big that new city is? 60,000 freaking doors.
That's huge.
And so you can see why their prices would potentially double. Portland and Washington will be the only West Coast ocean ports. Okay. Interesting. Rusty's always got a little bit different way of looking at it, that things that I don't consider. I like that. That's an interesting thought. Stockton, California, we talked about almost triple. Denver, Colorado, again, over double. And I know Denver's growing fast. The thing about Denver is it's all growing east towards the airport. Same with Colorado Springs. There's very limited stuff on the mountainside. So, I mean, there's areas like in Littleton where the median price right now is like 700,000. So it's almost 200,000 higher than like normal Denver. Sacramento, that doesn't surprise me. People getting out of the main city centers. Boston, Massachusetts kind of surprises me.
See, again, predicting the future is a fool's errand. You know,
Yeah.
Nobody can really do it accurately. Show me one person that can do 10 years, on point, and we'll write books about them forever.
Yeah, I think the thing that really surprises me about this and Portland and Washington is just that. I mean, I don't think that there's tons of migration to places that are cold. Like in my mind, everything's always telling me that people migrate where it's warmer. And that's where jobs are because, the climate is more stable. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I might be wrong. This one's crazy. Honolulu, Hawaii. I guess people are moving there. I've heard it's expensive. I've never been.
Well, there's only so much land in Hawaii.
That's true. That's true.
Usually they get a little more, but not in the way they need.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's Rusty's Seattle, Washington. So doubling of the price. And again, the whole kind of the point behind this was, guess what's not on there? Austin, Texas.
Sorry.
Which
you could have told me that was like the big banger on the end of that. I wouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry about that.
Well, but here's the other thing. There's no city in Texas on there. There's no major metro. Not DFW, not Houston. Nowhere in Texas, which I think that probably speaks a little bit to the amount of land that we have within commutable distances to the major metros. Maybe. Because
what bothers me about this is what they're not including. We're not including industry trends, right? Say again?
I said that's fair. Yeah.
Right. We're not including projected inflation, which I guess doesn't really matter too much for this list.
No, not really.
Like, what happens when we discover, that you can get oil from shale, right? Obviously we know that today, but when we didn't know that and we did discover it, the land that had shale underneath it became seriously more valuable, right? And you can't predict something like that unless you've got, this your genius level, and you know what I mean? And then you shouldn't be. Anyway, long story short is take that article with a grain of salt.
Obviously.
I'd love to see their predictions from 15 years ago, or I guess 8.5 years ago, right? Yeah. See what they thought things would be like. There'll be a pandemic that will hit in the year 2020. We're sure of it. And you just can't predict some of this stuff. It's anyways. So
no,
it's fun to read.
The other thing that kind of was interesting about that is we've been hearing people talk about a massive crash in the housing market and all this other stuff, right? But they're predicting over the next 10 years, most of those markets doubling or potentially even tripling. Okay.
So what happens when our currency goes up 100% in inflation, but the housing market drops 50%? What happens to the price of the housing?
Exactly.
Right. So I don't know. At the end of the day, what you own, if you own a home, is an asset. This is not like a car where you buy it and it immediately loses value. Right. Typically, when you buy a home, it holds its value. Yes, there were fees you had to pay. So if you sold it immediately, you'd lose out on the fees and that kind of stuff, and the closing costs, etc. The money you had to pay that wasn't a down payment. And that's why we say don't buy. Well, unless you're gonna live there for 5 to 7 years.
Yeah,
there were those fees.
There for 10 years.
You pay fees when you sell. But for the most part, when you buy a car, what you lose, like what, 60% of the value over the next like 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
You drive off the lot and lose how much in value? I know it's a significant amount.
I don't know. I've heard 25 or 30%. I don't know if that's.
I've heard a bunch of different ones, and then I go to buy it, and I'm like, wait, that wasn't the price I thought it was going to drop. But it's at the end of the day, when you're facing an economy like ours, and if you look at that interest rate right there, the only reason it's showing that rate is because of the uncertainty of our economy. The
Right.
investors don't know what's going on. They
Yeah.
do not know who's going to win this election. They do not know, what kind of policies we're going to be facing. And until they do, they're just not going to get all pretty with the numbers. Sorry.
They're not. And that's, I was going to say, this is the interesting thing I was going to point out. So this is a 2-month graph, and right about in here is where interest rates dropped a half point.
Yeah, they
Or
cut
not interest rates. Sorry, not interest rates. The Fed rate was cut a half point, and ever since then, it has just gone up.
Yeah.
Do you want to read through this? But this article is talking about mortgage rates are down a little bit as the week starts. Election volatility goes both ways.
Yeah, it'd be impossible for me to read it because it's so tiny on my screen. But honestly, the title says it all.
Yeah,
if anybody
really
wants to know why rates are doing what they're doing, it's the same reason why about a month and a half ago I suggested maybe pausing that home purchase, until after the election. The market, I just said it, I'll say it again, but the market does not know what's going on.
You said that right about in here. You really did. I mean, market was still dropping, and you were like, So you could have gotten a good deal for a little bit potentially, but look what's happened since.
But look at the volatility since. Right now, we're at a higher rate than where I was then. So it's just and again, nobody can predict the future. I always think it's typically. I mean, if you look at the timeline of owning homes, right, it's almost always a good time to buy a house. Right? Yeah. Okay. You could have bought in like 2007 and then been pretty upset for a while. But again, if you're going to stay there, 5 to 10 years, 5 to 7 years, then you would have been happy, right? At least happier than renting. You get your money back. And so I don't know, man. I just in terms of your sanity, that's what I was really talking about. Because it's a nerve-wracking thing to buy a house.
It really is.
I remember in college, I took a psychology class, and they would give a point value to like major life things, like the loss of your mother or your father, right? And buying and selling a home, I think each was like 100 points, and if you go over 150 points, you're officially stressed out. So, if you buy a house, you're almost there. If you sell your house on top of that, man, you are stressed out. Losing a loved one was like, I think 200 points. So I think buying and selling a house is exactly the same amount of stress as losing like your father or your mother.
That's nuts.
Right? It's obviously not the same experience, but in terms of stress on your system, it's up there. So with everything going on, I mean, if I thought I was going to get a 6.5% interest rate or a 6.4, and now all of a sudden I'm at 7.2, I mean, that's hard to chew on, man.
Seriously stressful. It is, man.
Yeah, and then by the way, when you're at that, let's just call it 6.5. I don't know where we were. I think we were around that, but let's just say we were around that. Then you can use extra money to buy your rate down even further, right? Which is considered prepaid interest, and you're literally spending money to have a better interest rate. It is think of it as a fee because it's not down payment money, but you're paying extra to get a better rate, and that can be up to 1% or more better than the going rate. So if you're around 6.5, you could have gone all the way down to almost 5.5. And now someone's telling you, hey man, you got that hit on your credit score. Sorry, maybe we're instead of 7.05 here, like maybe you're at 7.2 or 3, right? And you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was getting a 5.5, right? And
a hell of a swing. Yep.
And you can still buy it down, right? But still, it's a shock, no matter who you are. When this happens, it's a huge shock. The first thought is, why is my lender being so mean? I must caution.
My lender's the worst.
Yeah, I've got to caution people not to think that. It could be. Go ahead and shop if you want to, but they're still the same lender. But they have to look at a computer screen that's changed, right?
Well, I was going to say, this is basically daily movement all over this thing that you can see. Can you imagine? Hey, your lender's talking to you down here at 6.1.
God, man,
and 20 days later, because you're shopping, it goes up to freaking 6. It goes up a half point overnight. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah,
It goes up a half point overnight. And 20 days later, because you're shopping, it goes up a half point overnight. I mean, that's nuts. And 20 days later, because you're shopping, it goes up a half point overnight. And
Yeah, when I started in 2012, I didn't even know what the bond market was or what it
Yeah,
did or how it even affected mortgage rates and how they were even correlated. I had no idea. You know, you live, you learn. And but
right.
back then, you know, I'd be curious to look at the data again. But I remember rates moving 10 basis points in a day, maybe 8 in a day, something like that. But you know, then 2020 hit, and you know, oh my lord! I mean, I've seen 100-point hits in a day, or
Yeah.
swings. You know, where we're talking 1%, like almost a full percent difference in rate in one day, because of volatility and huge news. And it's like, oh my lord in heaven! And today, you know, you're still getting these huge swings, and so
Yeah.
it's a market that is just like a temper tantrum little baby, you know, teenager kind of thing.
Yep.
That we need it to
How
calm down.
man, how much do you think we see these wilder swings now due to like using AI algorithms and stuff like that? Because I would think like the vast majority of the people making these decisions are pretty seasoned
You
decision makers.
probably won't like my answer.
No, I'm really curious.
I think the AI has actually stabilized the market.
Really,
Yes, I do.
I would think like with humans, cooler heads would prevail, and they're like,
So
okay, well this
look,
let's moderate this, and I figured AI would be all over the place, trying to make adjustments.
so no matter who I talk to in the industry, we are all of the opinion, and I'm trying to say this in a political way because a lot of them aren't, you know, a lot of them are from one side of the spectrum to the other. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And they're all of the opinion that our current administration has been lying with their numbers, absolutely
Well,
fudging the numbers that they're releasing, and our economy is not what it seems. Now,
right.
you only have this solid conclusion if you're looking at all these numbers every month, and then you compare them to the non-government numbers, oh, come on now, Steve, the private payroll numbers, and you know, something's off. Okay, and we
Yeah.
were all being nice for a few months, and then after like a year's worth goes by, you're like, okay,
Right.
clearly this is wrong, right? You know, doing 800,000 job revisions, always doubling your numbers, always. It's like
Yeah.
always, every time now it's 50%. It's okay. Well, let's just cut that in half. You could. Anyways, you know, let's put it this way. When I was working in retail,
Hmm.
back in college, I learned that if you got rid of shrinkage, which is theft, right?
Yeah.
If you got rid of all theft, the prices for almost everything across the board would go down by about one third,
Yep. Yep.
right? If you got solid numbers that were real, and people who were investing didn't think that things were being manipulated, we would have a much softer economy today. We would have a much easier time of knowing what to do with our money and what not to do with it based on solid numbers that we're accepting and believing in. When you
Yeah.
don't believe the numbers, you must then take up a defensive position. Have we become a Venezuela kind of economy? Right? We've heard that the Fed now is selling the short term. I'm sorry, the long term debts that were good debts at low rates for short term debts, which gets you money now, but now we have to pay for it in a few years. We're getting big trouble soon, right?
Yep.
Where should I park my money? Right? And
Yep.
there's now a correlation with gold and that fear, and gold is way up, bitcoin's up, you know, everything's going well,
They've
that those
launched
assets are
over the
going up.
last month. They have launched
What now?
crazy. They have launched over the last month. Gold and Bitcoin. I mean,
Well,
they had been cranking up forever.
they've really launched over the last 16 months. I mean, if you look at
Well,
if
yeah.
you look actually from the year 2020, one of the best, I think actually now the best investment that you could have had was investing in gold. Now I'm not an investor, but I just read an article about this the other day. They're like, in 2020, you should have bought gold. You didn't know it at the time, but that would
Yeah.
have been the best play. You know, and that happens in times of uncertainty when economies are not sure if they're going to be around or how strong they're going to be soon,
And
right?
isn't
That
it funny though? But like you and I have been talking about it, and everybody that's pitching gold as a asset has been telling us like we are in an uncertain economy, and everybody's like, do Dow Jones is high and blah blah blah. I mean, we're kind of we're our own worst enemy when it comes to that. We really are. I mean, I'm over leveraged in the stock market, right? Well, not in the stock market, but in, facets of the market. I'm still over leveraged, and I know that. But, again, life's good. You know,
Jeff Bezos just sold something like, can't remember what it was, but it was like in the millions of shares. Buffett's gotten out of the market. Pretty much all the big guys are out of the market right now. They've all gone to cash positions. So if you're still in,
my financial advisor tonight.
I figured you would want that information.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because
no problem. And I am not a financial advisor, and I am not in the market. so don't listen to me. I'm a mortgage guy. That's what I do.
That's right, and a damn good one.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, let's wrap it up there, guys. This is what we do on Mondays. And again, if you're watching this after the fact, drop questions in, drop thoughts. Again, if you think we're idiots, tell us. I don't care. I'll still go drink a beer with you. Rusty's a good example. Rusty thinks both of us are morons, and we went and had lunch with him. So it's fine. It's really fine.
You can drink the beer with them. I won't. I'll stay home. I don't need that.
Well, actually, I won't be drinking beer for a couple of months. So I won't drink beer with you either. I'll drink a nice sparkling water, though. See you next Monday.
See you in a week, brother.
Oh, I thought I stopped.